A fresh start. Before I begin, let me make one thing clear. I'm not crazy. I know exactly how this is going to sound: paranoid, unhinged, like something I made up. But I swear, everything I'm about to tell you really happened. It all started with a face, or rather, several faces that were all just a little dissimilar. 6 months ago, I ended things with my ex, Ethan. We'd been together for nearly 3 years, and honestly, the breakup was long overdue. Ethan wasn't violent or anything like that. He never laid a hand on me. He was the quiet, calculated type, the controlling, possessive kind, maybe the worst kind. He tracked when I was on my phone, questioned me about my day just to see if I'd get the same answer twice. After I left him, I changed my number, deactivated my socials, even moved into a new apartment. I thought I'd escaped the danger. Then the barista appeared. It was a Tuesday morning. I stopped by this tiny, rundown coffee shop near my new place. I'd only been there once or twice. As I walked up to the counter, the barista girl about my age smiled at me, but something in her expression made me pause. She tilted her head and said, "Good morning, sunshine." I froze. That was Ethan's nickname for me, and not a common one. Whenever I was upset, he'd say it mockingly, "What's wrong, sunshine?" He loved pushing people's buttons. I brushed it off. Maybe a coincidence. But then it happened again. A few days later, I ordered a rideshare to work. The driver was an older man, maybe in his 50s. He kept glancing at me through the mirror like he was trying to place me. Then he asked, as casually as possible, whether I'd figured out what I was running from. I just stared at him and said, "What?" He chuckled like we shared some private joke. Ethan had said those exact words to me once, leaned in, dead serious, and asked, "Have you figured out what you're running from yet?" Now the strangers had repeated his lines verbatim, and it kept going. A woman bumped into me at the grocery store and whispered, "You can't just disappear." A man walking past me said, "Still wearing your hair like that." Someone who worked in my building hummed the same song Ethan used to play whenever we argued, then said, "You always loved this one." It wasn't their faces that scared me. It was the way they looked at me like they knew me, or thought they did. Different faces, same eyes, same expression. I started wondering if I was losing my mind. What else could explain it? I did something I'm not proud of. I messaged Ethan's sister, never him directly. I asked her to tell Ethan to stop. I figured he'd hired some private investigator or manipulated people somehow. I just wanted it to end. She replied the next day, "Ethan's in rehab. He's been there 6 weeks. No phone." I didn't believe her. I thought she was covering for him, until she posted a photo a week later. Ethan looked pale and hollow, holding a 1-month sobriety chip. So it wasn't him, at least. Not directly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone out there knew things they shouldn't. No, one night, I stayed late at work because home didn't feel safe anymore, not because of anything in it, just because being alone felt wrong. Around midnight, I finally left. I walked the 30 minutes back to my place with my head down, headphones, but no music playing, something I trained myself to do so I could hear footsteps behind me. When I turned the corner onto my street, I saw someone sitting on the steps of the building across from mine, a young man with his hood up, head lowered. I would have ignored him, but he spoke. "Cold night, isn't it, sunshine?" He didn't even look at me, just stared at the pavement like he was reading something written there. I walked past him without a word inside my apartment. I locked every lock and sat awake for hours. Eventually, I passed out on the couch. The next morning, I found my doormat flipped over. That might not sound like much, but I live on the top floor. You don't just walk by my door. On the underside, scribbled in pen, were the words, "You can change your face too, but I'll still know you." I didn't know what it meant, but my stomach dropped. I booked a hotel for the weekend, left without packing anything, not even clothes. I just needed people around me. The hotel clerk gave me a small room on the 4th floor. Quiet, stuffy, but safe. Until around 4 a.m. someone knocked. 3 slow taps. I sat up in bed, frozen. Then they knocked again. I checked the peephole. A woman in her 40s stood there, expression blank, staring directly at my door. She didn't say anything. I stayed silent. She eventually left. The next morning, I asked the front desk if anyone had been on my floor. They said no. All the rooms on my floor were empty. That's when everything clicked. These weren't random people. They were being fed information, my details, Ethan's phrases. Someone was prompting them. If it wasn't Ethan himself, then someone was doing it for him. I remembered a conversation months before the breakup, Ethan mentioning some community forum where members shared tactics. He made it sound like productivity or self-help stuff. I don't remember the name. Looking back, it sounds more like some creepy cult-adjacent role-playing nonsense. My best guess, even from rehab, even technically out of my life, Ethan had people repeating his words, mimicking his behavior, strangers acting like reflections of him, just to make sure I never stopped thinking about him. Not stalking in the traditional sense. Psychological graffiti, spraying pieces of himself onto strangers so I'd never know who was really looking at me. I moved again, vanished from social media again, dyed my hair, told my friends not to give anyone my new address. It worked until last week. I was walking home from a bookstore when a woman passing by said, still hiding behind books, "Sunshine." She didn't even pause, didn't even look at me. I don't think this will ever stop. Maybe Ethan paid for some insane underground service. Maybe it became a game. Maybe strangers compete now. Who can scare Sunshine the most without touching her? I can't trust anyone's face anymore. The constant paranoia is wearing me down. A night on Lake Michigan. Family is the type that never travels homebodies. All of them. So when my aunt suggested a trip to one of the Great Lakes in Michigan, everyone was shocked. We agreed because we wanted to make new memories together. My cousin managed to rent a huge airbnb that somehow fit 15 people, which honestly felt like a miracle considering the price. The house sat directly on the beach, with miles of wide open lake views that looked more like an ocean than a lake. Most of us claimed rooms in the main house, but because of our large group, some of us were assigned to a second structure behind it, a 2-story garage with bedrooms upstairs. 3 of my cousins and I were placed there. At first, we didn't think much of it. We spent most of the first day in the hot tub, relaxing on the sand and soaking in the view. We didn't even step foot inside the garage until nightfall. The place was old and neglected, musty. Carpeted bathrooms, stained bedding, and a flimsy latch barely hanging onto the door frame. Clearly, the cleaners had focused on the main house and forgotten the garage entirely. My cousins were disgusted and refused to sleep on the beds unless the sheets were washed, so I offered to do laundry. The machines were tiny, so we could only wash one set of bedding at a time. It was obvious we'd be up late. While waiting for the first load, we stayed upstairs. My cousin Mariah complained about getting stuck in the worst building. While she talked, a sense of unease crept over me, one of those rare instincts I get before something bad happens. I told them to stay alert, and they listened. Living in Detroit, all of us had been through a home intrusion scare before. Around midnight, the buzzer downstairs went off, signaling the first load was done. I went alone, switched the laundry into the dryer, and brought the clean sheets back upstairs. After seeing how fresh they looked, my cousins insisted on washing their sets too. So I kept going up and down, cycling everyone's bedding. By 4:50 a.m., we were finally done. We made the beds and were far too exhausted to stay awake any longer. My cousin Nikki insisted we keep the light on. They quickly fell asleep while I stayed up, doing some schoolwork on my phone, even half asleep. I was hyper aware of my surroundings. And then, at around 5:35 a.m., something slammed against the garage door like someone threw their full weight into it. I shot upright, heart pounding. My cousins didn't move. I tried to tell myself it was just the wind, but the sound was far too heavy. Still, I stayed quiet and lay back down. Then it happened again. Another deafening crash. The garage door shook violently. The entire building trembled from the impact. Now fully awake, I stared at the lit room while my cousin slept. There was no way wind or an animal caused that. 15 minutes later, the third crash hit. The garage shook again. 2 of my cousins shot upright. I asked if they'd heard it, even though I already knew the answer. Nikki asked what was going on. I don't know, I said, but that's the 3rd time. We all agreed there was no wind strong enough to make that sound. Nikki suggested texting her mom or auntie, and she did. It was 5:55 a.m. I immediately realized something was wrong and woke my uncle, who ran outside to check the property. We stayed upstairs, frozen with fear, until someone knocked on the door. It was my uncle, and when we opened it, he was standing there with my dad and 2 of my older male cousins. That's when we understood how serious things were. There was no wind, no prank, no joke. My uncle told us to grab our stuff. We were moving to the main house. Then he said there had been someone on the property. My stomach dropped. I tossed everything into my suitcase and we bolted out of the garage. When we got inside the main house, most of the family had woken up from the noise and chaos. We sat in the living room, trying to piece things together. I described the first two crashes, and my cousins confirmed the third. Then my aunt explained what happened when she followed my uncle outside. My uncle had walked around the garage and saw a man standing behind it, not hiding, not moving, just standing there as if he wanted to be seen. When my uncle yelled, "Hey," the man didn't flinch. At that exact moment, the back door of the main house slammed shut even though there was no wind to explain it. My aunt panicked, thinking someone had slipped inside the house, so she ran to wake my dad and the cousins. After searching the place, they found no one. Then my uncle told us what he'd seen in detail. A man standing behind the garage, not stepping back, not running, just staring. And when he finally turned away, he didn't disturb a single leaf on the ground. No footsteps, no sound, no tracks. My uncle is not someone who exaggerates. He's serious and level-headed. That made everything worse. Then my brothers revealed something they'd found. Two jokers playing cards, one inside the main house, one in the garage. The one in the garage looked twisted and eerie. Another cousin mentioned that gestures symbolized trickery, and the loud crashes happened around 5 a.m. known by some as the devil's hour, as if something was toying with us. My uncle even checked the backyard for footprints he only saw, his own and my cousin's. No one else. Single quotes as Another cousin drove around the road searching for someone who might have fled. He found no one. No one went back to the garage after that. We all squeezed into the main house floors, couches, anywhere we could fit. My mom even gave up her bed so we could sleep. The second night, she slept on a couch near the huge windows. At around 4 a.m., she woke to footsteps on the porch. She didn't dare open her eyes, terrified she'd see someone staring in. Then she heard someone trying the basement door. The lock was weak, and my brothers and male cousins were sleeping downstairs. The door creaked under pressure. My mom bolted down to the basement, but by the time she got to the beachside entrance, no one was there. The boys were still asleep. That was our last night there. We were supposed to stay until Tuesday. We left Monday. On the drive home, we couldn't stop talking about it. When my mom realized I'd been going downstairs alone to switch the laundry, she feared someone might have been watching me and thought I was alone in the garage. The timing between my last laundry trip and when we went to bed lined up perfectly with the first crash. Then the theories started. Some thought it was a neighbor trying to scare us away. Others believed it was paranormal, especially because of the joker cards. My aunt said a normal person would have run when spotted, but this man didn't. He just stared, then vanished. We called the urban owner. He said he checked footage from the camera above the garage door. We never heard from him again, which only made us wonder, did he know the guy? Was he a neighbor? When we first arrived, my sister and cousin had passed a woman walking the shoreline. She stared them down, cold, unfriendly, hostile. The house was remote, and we knew locals sometimes disliked constant urban guests. But we were respectful. We didn't deserve what happened. It was our first family vacation, and hopefully, despite everything, not our last. What we experienced in our new home, my girlfriend and I recently moved into our new house. Honestly, it's the home we always dreamed of, perfect in every way for us. We also have a cat we adopted together named Rolly, so when we first moved in, everything felt amazing. The only downside was the house to our right. The owner had started renovating it but never finished, leaving it looking completely abandoned. Here's the layout. To our right, there's a small area that leads to the entrance of our backyard, and right next to that is the entrance to the abandoned house's backyard. There was no fence separating the 2 yards because the owner had removed the old one to install a new one, but never completed the job, leaving both backyards wide open. Behind the abandoned house, separated by a fence, there was another property. From what we could see, a few young men lived there. Sometimes, when we came home, we would see them cutting through the abandoned yard to get to the street. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe they knew the owner and had permission. Now, on to our first night in the new house. We were sitting in the backyard, relaxing, and out of curiosity, looked toward the houses behind us. That's when we noticed a man staring at us through a window. He wasn't hiding, he was doing it openly. His face had no expression, and the room behind him was pitch black, making it even more unsettling. We assumed he was just curious about his new neighbors, but after half an hour of him staring blankly at us, we decided to go inside. The next few days were normal. I went to work, and my fiancé continued unpacking. One night, we decided to sit in the backyard again. It was dark, but we enjoyed stargazing and talking until we heard the temporary wooden fence being moved. 3 men appeared in front of us, staring. "Are you guys okay?" I asked, knowing they wouldn't leave unless I said something. The youngest looking one, around 35, was holding a large bag, no idea what was inside. He offered us stolen dishwasher tablets, which we politely refused. The situation felt so strange that I made a joke. He cracked a smile and said, "All right." Then they walked off. What shocked me was how casually they walked into our yard as if they had every right to be there. We assumed it was a one-time incident and went inside, but everything only got worse from there. They began entering our yard more frequently, moving in ways that were clearly intended to intimidate us. They would lift the fence and walk straight into the abandoned house next door. I forgot to mention my girlfriend and I are both 23, so the idea that they might be trying to intimidate two young women definitely crossed our minds. One day, while I was cleaning the front room, the police officers walked through the side of our house and into the abandoned yard. They lifted the fence, looked around for a few minutes, then left without saying anything. I found it odd, but assumed maybe the guys next door were causing problems. A few days later, the police came to our door. They explained that the house behind us was now empty. The men had been evicted due to antisocial behavior. Apparently, their issues weren't just with us, but with other neighbors too. Honestly, we were relieved. They hadn't done anything physical yet, but at least now they couldn't escalate things. We continued settling into the house, but one day, while I was in the bathroom, I heard a loud noise outside. I rushed to find my girlfriend and found her filming something from the spare bedroom window that faced the abandoned yard. I asked what was going on, but she shushed me. After a moment, she explained. A man we had never seen before pointed directly at our bedroom window. When my girlfriend noticed him, he suddenly sprinted full speed toward our house. As he passed, he tried our door handle, then ran back into the yard, threw the broken fence aside, and began banging on all the windows of the empty house. We immediately called the police. They came, watched the video, took our statements, and left. We were shaken. Why would he try our door handle and then go into that house? What was he planning? A few nights later, while lying in bed, we heard whistling, the kind men used to harass women. It was 3:55 a.m. We listened quietly, then heard tapping on our window. Terrified, we checked the cameras, but for some reason nothing had recorded. Whoever it was must have left shortly after because the noises stopped. We were too scared to stay home, so we went to my parents and spent the night there. The next morning, when we returned, we discovered our Ring doorbell had been removed and placed on the ground. The SD card was gone. Someone had clearly come back in, and we knew exactly who it was. Who else could it be? We called the police again, and they told us to keep all doors and windows locked. The woman on the phone even said removing the camera could be a sign they were planning something, which terrified us even more. But at least she was honest. The whistling, banging, and attempts to enter our home continued for weeks. We filed multiple police reports. They never tried our door again, so we hoped it was finally over. But 3 weeks later, while watching funny clips in bed, we checked the live feed. That's when we saw a man standing in our front garden wearing a black mask, covering his mouth and nose, hood up. His arms were stretched out to the sides like he was imitating Jesus on the cross. His head was tilted as he stared directly at our bedroom window. We froze. We had moved the camera inside the house by then, so it didn't record anything. We were so shocked we didn't even think to screen record. He then spoke, though we couldn't hear what he said. After that, he turned around, walked to the other side of the street, and stood there staring at our house for about 15 minutes. We called the police again. They told us it wasn't illegal to look at someone's property and brushed off the entire situation. Even when we explained what he was doing in our yard, they made us feel like we were overreacting. We couldn't sleep for days. Every little noise outside terrified us. Then, one night at 3:50 a.m., we got a notification. I woke my girlfriend and said, "Someone's outside." "I know it. Please check the camera." She looked, and they were there, the masked men walking along the side of our house, shining flashlights into our windows. One of them, the same one who'd been harassing us, was holding something that looked like a crowbar. Why us? What was the goal? For days, he stood across the street pointing at our windows, waving, yelling things. Every time we looked, he stared blankly back at us. It was obviously meant to scare us, and it worked. We kept reporting everything to the police, but they did very little. The harassment continues. We now have cameras recording everything, but we still feel helpless. Just today, he was outside again, watching us. We filmed it, and We're terrified, but if anything else happens, we'll update you.